how has it happened that Britain has become the Sharia law capital of the West? Why does that matter? And what I really want to do this hour is speak to you if you have gone through that court system, quote unquote court system. You've needed Sharia law in this case for a divorce or for a marriage. Why was it important for you to do so? 03456060973. Baroness Shaista Gohir is Chief Executive of the Muslim Women's Network. Thank you very much indeed for coming on the programme. To what extent, Baroness, is it a problem that there are Sharia courts in this country talking about Sharia law?
Well, I need to start off with a headline, which is that Britain is supposed to be the capital of Sharia courts, which was what was said in the article.
Yes.
And I've got to challenge that headline because there's no evidence of that, because that headline has come from a quote within the article,
yes,
which was an activist called Maryam Nawazi, who's an ex-Muslim who criticised Islam quite regularly. And she said, in her opinion, she believes that Britain is the Western capital of Sharia courts. So you can't have someone's opinion as the headline. So that's the first thing I want to address. Then
you can have someone's opinion as a headline. You just need to know that it's their opinion.
Well, yeah, but that's been stated as fact. That's the problem. Even you've sort of stated it as fact. So I think we need to sort of stop fear-mongering, first of all. And then we've got to talk about the numbers. So the article talked about there's, I think, anything between 30 and 85. I've been trying to search the number 85. It comes up regularly, and I can't find 85 Sharia councils because we're doing a project at the moment, and I wrote a report in 2016. So I've been trawling online for this project, and I managed to find about 34. I might have missed some, maybe there's 40, but I wouldn't even, so we can't call them Sharia courts. We don't call them Sharia courts. So we can't have terminology imposed on us that we don't use. I wouldn't even call them Sharia councils. I would call them Sharia divorce services or Islamic divorce services.
Right.
So I think we need to get that into context. And then it can't be the capital because we've got 4 million Muslims in the UK. In France, they've got 6 million Muslims. And in Germany, there's about 5.5 million Muslims. Surely they need to have higher or greater number of divorce services. And I don't think...
Well, possibly, but they might not be Sharia.
Well, they would have to be if they're Muslims.
Right.
Sharia just means it's just taken from religious text.
Sure.
Really, it's just Islamic divorce services. But if you had a headline which said there's 85 Islamic divorce services, that's not going to be headline news. But if you say there's 85 Sharia courts,
no,
you've got to then think about why are we doing this? Is this culture wars? Are people trying to start culture wars? Yes, there are issues, by the way, with Islamic divorce services, which my charity is trying to tackle. But I think we shouldn't sort of fearmonger, and I hate the way that Muslim women's problems are weaponized, that suddenly people are worried about how Muslim women are, we're worried about how Muslim women are treated when no one cares how we're treated when we're abused with hate crime. So it is disingenuous.
No, I don't think that's fair. People do care about hate crime. Why the need for any Sharia courts? Or Islamic divorce. Why the need for why the need for any Islamic divorce services?
Okay, so Muslims will either have just the religious marriage, or they will have the religious marriage and a civil marriage, which is what we would want women to do because you have greater protections under UK law. Also, when you have spouses coming who are married abroad and then coming into this country, their marriage is legally recognised, so they don't need a civil marriage. So what happens is when a woman, a husband and wife are getting divorced, a woman wants to feel divorced before she can feel that she can move on. So she will want to have that kind of religious stamp of approval. Now, people may not agree with that, but if that is what she wants to feel that she needs to move on, she will approach a Sharia or Islamic divorce service and then get them involved in the process. And it should only take 3 or 4 months. The problem arises is when they drag their feet over it and take 1 or 2 years. But I think we're moving in the right direction compared to maybe 10 years ago, but there's still a lot more to do. And I think, I would love to see a code of practice to get them all on a level playing field.
Do you think there have been reviews into Sharia courts before by various different governments. Islamic divorce services. One of the suggestions has been that nobody should be able to, quote, marry via this religious method without having a civil partnership alongside of it, without the marriage being confirmed in English, in this case, English common law or UK common law. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's reasonable?
So I think what we probably need is to have a campaign, and we've had campaigns before, is to raise awareness of this issue. We want to give people choice. If we're about freedom of choice, of course, my organisation, somebody like me, would want, to recommend that people have both. But if they don't, we shouldn't sort of force people into force people to do something against their will. So I think what I would like to see is that, but in the meantime, what I would like is a campaign across the country to raise awareness. If you do not have a civil marriage and your marriage breaks down, the consequences of that. And at the moment, for example, we're trying to look at there might be cohabiting laws coming in the UK, look at how that can address some of these issues that are experienced by Muslim women.
Do you agree that Islamic divorce services are fundamentally pretty misogynistic?
I would probably say they have been, and it is mixed. So I'm going to be honest. So we've got a helpline, and one of our biggest calls is domestic abuse, and it is divorce because it's linked to that.
A man can say divorce, divorce, divorce 3 times, and it's done.
Unilaterally, but if a woman to have a divorce, so she'll go through that process, and even if he's done that, she'll still want some kind of certificate to say I'm actually divorced. So I would say it's a very mixed picture. So some of them are not good, and I won't name any on here. And women complain about all kinds of things in the way they're treated, questioned, for example, particularly if they're domestic abuse victims. However, there is some good practice in there. And I've noticed, because we've been doing this project at the moment, we're working with the University of Warwick, Dr. Rajnara Akhtar. What we're trying to do, and we hope to launch a website next year, is, and we're supporting her in that work, is a partnership, is to have an FAQ, so women are empowered with knowledge of what to expect from a divorce service. Can you imagine, if you're, for example, shopping around for a subscription service or an insurance service, and you have those columns with ticks, and it tells you what you get for for the service. We want to try and create something like that. So then women are then going to the services that are maybe potentially following the code of practice that we recommend, and then that can move the other divorce services along to think, well, actually, people aren't using our services. Maybe we also need to change our practice. But when I was researching online very recently, in the last few weeks, I've noticed that some of these divorce services have started to add information onto their website around, who's on the panel, around safeguarding, around codes of ethics. So compared to 10 years ago, we've moved in the right direction, but there's still a lot more work that needs to be done.
Really grateful to you for coming on. Thank you so much for your time. Baroness Gohir, Chief Executive of the Muslim Women's Network UK.